CatSynth TV.
Hey everybody, JB here for CatSynth TV. Today I am thrilled to be speaking with the one and the only Lydia Lunch. Lydia Lunch, composer, vocalist, author, poet, agent provocateur. I don't know. Lydia, if you were hard pressed to introduce yourself and define what it is that you do, what would you say? Do you have a way of introducing
I do. Yeah, confrontationalist.
Confrontationalist. Perfect.
With a U, yes.
This is something that I have associated with your work, especially over the years. You know, I've been a fan for 40 years or whatever it is since I got Know New York back. I got it in the early 80s, something like that, and I was really struck by it. So early on, before that album came out, I'm assuming that is your first recorded work, first professionally recorded work?
I'm not sure about the timeline on that. I think that there might have been some Teenage Jesus singles before that. I really am not. Well, Weasel Walter is the expert on all those things. You know, after X amount of decades and X amount of recordings, not too clear on the dates. But it's not my favorite Teenage Jesus recording, but it is one of my favorite Mars recording, which is one of my all-time favorite no-wave bands.
What is your favorite Teenage Jesus recording? What would that be?
Well, it's one that Weasel Walter put together about 2 years ago of live recordings. It's a vinyl. It's been reissued by Radiation Records out of Italy, and he did an amazing job and an amazing write-up. I think it's something like 30 songs and 26, I'm not sure, minutes.
Right.
No, the shortest song was 30 seconds. The longest set was 13 minutes.
We actually did pick up a copy of that when we saw you recently at the room in Albany. There'll be a picture of that cover here. Fantastic stuff, amazing stuff. So before that came out, what was it that is there any album or book, you know, because your stuff obviously has a very literary bent, whether it be the books themselves or the music, you know, is there something, you know, early on that you read it or you heard it and you said, man, this is something that I want to do. This is something I think I can.
Okay, that's a good question, but I'm going to cut you off because actually whatever did influence me almost in the negative. That is what I don't want to do. Even the things I liked. For instance, I ran away because of the New York Dolls. Did I want to sound like that then? No, eventually maybe. So I was inspired in the negative, except with literature, of course. I mean, Henry Miller still, every summer I have to go back to Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer. I just have to. Best passages in literature ever. So I was, as somebody who's anti everything, especially at that point, it was just to not sound like anything else. And plus, I was not a musician. I just knew I had to do something ugly, brutal, truthful, belligerent, violent.
Sure. Well, you say you're not a musician, but let me go back to Teenage Jesus again. I mean, the guitar playing on that is so fucking furious. I mean, it's just like, and maybe you don't play as much guitar anymore. You know,
I certainly freaking don't. But I know what you're, thank you very much. And it's interesting to me when metal dudes love my guitar playing. I'm like,
right.
And the more a guitar player knows, the less likely they are to be able to duplicate my sounds. Now, that was just rehearsing every single day, beating the drummer with a coat hanger if you got it wrong. Of course, it was only one drum. How wrong can you go?
Right.
And Teenage Jesus really went into its full bore with Jim Sylvunis on the bass. Right. But it was just, again, it had to be blunt, brutal, and it had to be really precise. Because if you're going to be that out, it's got to be really tight.
Yeah. And it's amazing stuff. And it, you know, really captures kind of an art brute kind of thing. You know, it's just like, oh my God.
Very Dada. What's interesting is when I went to do a reunion many decades later, and I could remember all the slide parts perfectly because I didn't rehearse every day for how long, but whatever, muscle memory, they call it.
Right.
But the so-called chords, and I don't even know a chord from a rope you put around your neck. Let me just say that. I had to actually call Jim Sylvunis and say, I can't figure out, because I was trying to work it with Thurston Moore, like, where were my, he goes, well, the reason you can't figure it out is because somebody only tuned your guitar once a month. I didn't even have a guitar. It wasn't even my guitar.
Oh,
so
really?
it would develop these harmonics, mysterious harmonics. So it wasn't like I was playing purposely out of tune. It was that didn't know any better. So harmonics would form. So that was interesting to me. It's like, okay, so as long as we have our fingers in the same place, it's fine.
Sure.
True that it was.
And then you went from that, and like this is the timeline as I understand it. But from Teenage Jesus, you went and you got together with Pat Irwin, right? And you did the Queen of Siam album.
Well, I also had a group simultaneously called Beirut Slump, which is true horrorcore.
Right.
And that was just outrageously demented music. I mean, that's on par with Mars as far as perverse music. And Bobby and Liz Swope, brother and sister team bass player and vocalist, Sklavounis on drums, I believe, and Vivian Dick, the filmmaker, on keyboard. But it's true horror rock. Sure. And it was just another form of my guitar playing, or I did compose those songs as I did compose the Teenage Jesus songs. And then Eight-Eyed Spy, Pat Irwin came to me with an idea for Eight-Eyed Spy, which was just too popular. I got very bored with it very quickly. And also they wanted me to sing, which I was very against at the time. But Queen of Siam, then Queen of Siam came along through Michael Zilka, who put out all the Z records. And he's the one that actually saw my musical schizophrenia. He understood that I could go from Teenage Jesus to Eight-Eyed Spy to Queen of Siam. Right. And that was a great luck for me to meet up with him then. Because I was just, lying in bed, stoned on seconals and whiskey, watching cartoons. I'm like, I need to make some music like that. And Michael Zilka understood that I should. But when you go back and hear that album, which, it's so long ago, and people have, whatever age or period people come into whatever record, not only in mine, but other people's, yeah, it affects, because it affected them at the time. If you go back and listen to it decades later, you might go, wow, that's really different than how I remember it, especially with Queen of Siam, because there's only 4 big band songs on there. The rest are nursery rhymes.
Right.
That I wrote and do play guitar. One of my favorite things that happened with Queen of Siam, and Bob Klein, my guitar hero, plays on it, was Mark Knopfler, Dire Straits, once said to Bob Klein, I love that guitar playing on one song, but it was my guitar.
You're gonna be
Bob Klein was my guitar hero of Richard Hell and the Voidoids and then Lou Reed.
Right. Fantastic.
And he was one of the only men that weren't afraid of me as a 17-year-old baby-faced teenage terrorist. Of course, he carried a screwdriver in his pocket, but he had to be afraid of me.
Well, you may speak down about Eight-Eyed Spy, but that, that cassette, that orange cassette that was on Roar.
Yeah, I know. Everybody loved it. Whatever. I remember once doing a show and I had to have my leg parallel to the floor in somebody's chest to keep the audience back. And I'm just like, you know what? Too popular. I don't like this. I just had to stop.
Well, you did some fantastic stuff, but we'll move on.
Wait, one second. There was a song, and it is one of the weirdest songs Eight-Eyed Spy or even any of my collaborations ever did, called Dead Me You B-Side, which Retrovirus does. And that's, I can't even, once I asked the audience, does anybody have a concept of a genre of this song? And some genius yelled out, Garage Forensics. I'm like, yes. And that's one of my favorite songs to this day, because it just stands alone outside of all genres of music. I mean, it's kind of no wave, it's kind of all jazz, but it's somewhere else.
Right. Well, you did, going back to the topic of your guitar playing, I've found not only the Beirut Slump that I heard on the, what
History.
was that? There was that two record set that came out. Yeah,
History.
That one. I heard the recordings on there, but you also did that one, The Drowning of Lucy Hamilton.
Oh, okay.
Right?
So that's another one metal dudes for some reason love. I don't know why. So The Drowning of Lucy Hamilton, which was myself and Connie Berg of Mars, the guitar player. It's 2 guitars, bass, clarinet, and piano. Yeah. And we did it to do the soundtrack for Richard Kern's The Right Side of My Brain, which is my homage to Roman Polanski's Repulsion. And it was thorough. So Connie and I would just get together and just, play music. Right. And we only did one live concert when we were in the basement and the audience was on the first floor. They're like, is this the concert? And we were just down there laughing our asses off. Yes, it is. And you can't see us. I'm still very good friends with Connie Berg. She's one of my dearest friends still, all these days, and great musical inspiration. And The Drowning of Lucy Hamilton but I wanted to make a record that you forgot it was on and then it scared you when it popped back.
Sure. Yeah, I was listening to it the other day after not having listened to it for quite some time.
I think it's a very beautiful record, yeah.
Then, same kind of thing. It's like, I forgot it was on. And it's like, what the fuck is that? Going on.
Yeah, you get it, my friend. You get it.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's move on to something else. So one more guitar playing thing, which as far as I remember, until the Teenage Jesus was the last bit of real heavy guitar playing from you, was that Harry Cruz record. Remember that?
That was pretty atrocious.
Well,
The
I thought it was
concept was
interesting.
great.
At the very least, it introduced me to Harry Cruz, right? About the
Well,
author,
that's
right?
great concept. I mean, I am basically a conceptualist. It's just I don't really think it reached its full. It just didn't really hit the mark. That album is live. It was all right, but the Gospel Singer, which both Big Sexy Noise and Retrovirus did for a while, is a great song. So that came from that, and the tour was amazing for me, at least.
Right.
Ecstasy and Sprinkles. Just saying.
You've mentioned Retrovirus a number of times. Retrovirus, we did, Amanda and I did see you perform with that. I think it was about 3-4 years ago, was it?
Yeah, about 4 years.
About 4 years ago here in San Francisco. Fantastic thing. And it's just great. You know, you have this body of work. You've got a catalog of, you know, all of these great compositions to pull through. I believe it was Tim Dahl on bass and
Yes.
Walter. And
Right,
then
yeah, Weasel, Walter, Tim Dahl, and now we have Kevin Shea. So I don't know who was the drummer at that point. Maybe Bob Bird. I'm not sure.
right. And we saw you just again recently with Tim Dahl on bass in a very different setting. So I'm kind of interested in, you know, when you find a collaborator, what is, you know, is it you hear somebody and you think I could work with this person, or, you know, do you go looking for a person? You know,
Okay,
how
well,
does that
very
come about?
interesting. Very interesting. I have mainly, as a conceptualist, first, of course, the concept of the sound comes first. Then I usually look for who can adequately provide me with the music I need. So with Retrovirus, for instance, I was looking for a guitar player, like who can play Roland S. Howard, Robert Klein, myself, etc. And
Sure.
somebody suggested Weasel, who I only knew as a drummer,
Right.
and he volunteered, so that was great. And then Weasel brought in Tim Dahl, who I didn't know. But Tim and I immediately, and Tim didn't even know that much of my music, but he immediately understood, and is such an important part of Retrovirus. And also, he has so many, the same with Weasel, they have so many other styles and dimensions to explore. So they too are musical schizophrenics. So, what you just saw, Murderous Again,
Mhm.
with Tim Dahl and Matt Nelson, amazing saxophonist, and Tim Dahl, the co host of the Lydia Spin, my podcast.
Right.
I wanted to do something that was more avant improv, but with spoken word. And so hence there was Murderous Again.
Right.
And with Retrovirus, I mean, I have a catalog of 400 songs. I know. I can't even believe I had the time to write all those.
Right.
I don't even remember some of them. So whatever. So we have a vast catalog to choose from. And that's why it's one of my longest reigning musical projects, because we could go in, go out, you know, we have a lot to choose from. And also, I think it's important to rock.
Sure. So when we talk about the spoken word things, when you have the accompanists, or I mean, I don't know how you define that role when you're putting these bands together. Is there a rehearsal for it, or is it basically
Oh,
you get on
no.
stage
Oh, well,
and react in the moment?
no, I'm going to cut you out right there. First of all, I love spoken word. I love a naked spoken word I don't need any accompaniment.
Right.
After doing spoken word for quite a while, I started then doing psychoambient backing tracks. That's one of my compositional pastimes.
Sure.
So, and then with video, and then occasionally I would have somebody accompany me. It could be sax, it could be drums. Weasel, Walter and I did Brutal Measures, which was drums and vocals. Now I'm doing it with Kevin Shea in Texas in September. And there's a concept, but you can't rehearse this stuff. With Murderous Again, because I'm so confident, but it has to be, I conduct it, because I conduct the music I'm basically a conductor.
Sure.
And I have the freedom I know basically, look, I have a lot of notes, but it's not like I'm going to say this in this order. So I have some room for, not improvisation, but mixing it up, wherever the music's taking me. And it's really like a satanic symphony with Murderous Again. And we just put a show, one of the shows, not the one you saw, but a recent show from the West Coast up on the Lydian Spin a couple of weeks ago, absolutely satanic symphonies and spoken word. So now with Kevin Shea, what I'm doing next, like incredible drummer, is because again, it's a concept a little different, because I've done illustrated word, as I called it before. So we have a beginning and an end. And then there are set pieces that might be more quote unquote musical. But within that, then we have room, especially for a musical improvisation.
Right.
So, and then I have certain work, but I can scramble my poems, my rants up. And so that's how that works. I mean, it's always a little bit different.
Sure. Well, it's fantastic stuff. I mean, I saw a little video clip. You had done a recent performance with a friend of mine, Sylvia Black, down there in LA just recently, and she's amazing, and you're amazing.
Well,
but the two of you together was just like,
that's what I'm coming back to the West Coast with, but not San Francisco. I'm coming actually to Portland, Olympia, and Seattle, and Santa Ana with Sylvia Black and Greg Foreman and Kevin Shea on drums. Sure. So that's going that's almost a bookend to Queen of Siam, I Almost Spoke in the Shadows, and then Sylvia Black, who writes incredible music, very filmic, very, very noir. And I think that combination is great because then she's just an amazing songstress, chanteuse, composer, bass player.
Yes.
So with her specific talents, and how that even came about was we were both doing residencies at the Roxy Hotel in New York. I was living there for 6 months because I was a nomad. So I was doing shows every Sunday with Weasel and Tim and then Bibi Hansen and Zoe Hansen. So female spoken word, musical improv. And I heard Sylvia Black singing one night, and I looked out my door. There she was, and I'm like, and she was doing a psychedelic furs song in jazz noir, and I'm like, all right. So she had just recorded this song, not for me, but she sent it to me, and I'm like, I'm jumping in on this fucking thing.
Right.
And there was a sax break, and I just jumped in with spoken word. And after that, she created this whole album, which we have not released yet, but we're doing some shows with both her music and some of mine. So some of my more Roland S. Howard inspired, and then the Sylvia Black stuff, which is more, I call it late night psycho ambient jazz noir. Very sexy and very murderous again.
Fantastic. Well, in addition to a lot of the musical things that we've been talking about, you did all of those fantastically over the top films, or at least that's the way I think of them, with Richard Kern and so forth. How did all of that come about? Richard Kern was someone you knew, or he approached you?
I left New York in 1980, moved to LA for 2 years, then to London, worked with Roland S. Howard, and then came back to New York. And I asked Carlo McCormick, who was a great art critic, if he knew anybody who was doing short, violent performances so I could curate spoken word shows. And he introduced me to Kern. And Kern was already making short films. And so we just decided to collaborate. And The Right Side of My Brain, which I had mentioned earlier, was like an homage to Repulsion, basically about, and again, these films were very much part of my public psychotherapy, shall we say. And Right Side of My Brain is basically about the search for more that a lot of women have. And until they fill the void within with themselves, they'll be forever hungry. So Connie Berg and I did the soundtrack, and I wrote the narration. I had the concept, but I recorded the narration in one go when the film was done, and Thurwell did the rest of the music.
Right.
And then we went on to do Fingered, which we wanted to make a drive-in exploitation film, which at the time, and look, making those films at the time, we were just doing what we did amongst many other things we did. Sure. When I saw Fingered, I said to Richard, it's not hardcore enough. Of course, other people would vomit, run out of the club, have a beer bash. It had such divided opinions. Oh, it's the most feminist film. Oh, it's the most misogynist film. Nobody really understood that basically we wanted to make a black and white drive-in trailer about some real experiences that happened to me. And yes, it's ugly. And it also, when people say, well, it's not pornographic, but it shows sex in a very ugly light, which sometimes it is.
Right.
And for that, Imagine could not make that film now. So anyway, we just do these films. It has a divided opinion. Who fucking cares? I didn't make it for anyone's opinion. But then the Whitney Museum picks it up as the top cinema of transgression, takes me to Australia, blah, blah. You just make what you make. I never thought anything I did was shocking. I do what I do based on my real life experiences, whether it's spoken word, music, those films, the photography I take. So if it's too hardcore, get the fuck off my tip. I really don't care. And I'm just glad I was able to do it then. Because now, are you shitting me? We've got, the divide that we have now, which to me is just, I can't even put my head around it. We got the new Puritan, don't touch me, rape. And then we have Cardi B. and then we have, internet extreme porn. And then we have, I just, it's such a wide divide. I guess there's room for everybody. Anyway, just back to the point. I never made anything I thought was shocking. As a matter of fact, I thought some things were not shocking enough.
Right, sure.
I'm meant to shock. I know there are other people, especially women, that have the same, had the same obsessions I have. So somebody had to talk about it, and I hadn't found anybody else talking about it. So, blah blah blah.
Well, when you're writing your books, when you're writing your prose, when you're writing your lyrics, are you? I mean, some of it, as you mentioned there, you're drawing from personal experiences. I mean, do you find it easier to draw from personal experience, or do you find it easier? Some authors find it easier to write as a character, draw from a person.
Oh, no, I don't even understand fiction. I mean, I'm always amazed when I find good fiction. I never read fiction anymore, except for the new Craig Clevenger book, Mother Howell is amazing. But I don't understand. I have written a few fiction pieces, but people always think they're also true. But no, I write from personal experience. I don't understand. I have not written a novel. I wrote a memoir. I have anthologies out. I write short stories. I write rants. I write lyrics, but I don't write novels. I don't understand them because I don't find the point too much. Although, back to Henry Miller, they weren't novels. This was a run-on sentence that went on for hundreds of pages.
Right.
All right.
Okay. So one of the things that, of course, and I don't want this to sound too much like I'm, a fanboy shit and I'm blowing smoke at you.
You know what? Excuse me. I wouldn't know whether you were insulting me or complimenting me, because basically I'm pretty neutral about anybody else's opinions. But carry on. Go ahead.
Okay.
Blow some smoke. But I'm sitting on my ass. It won't get up there.
So your whole thing has been tenacity and staying true to yourself and staying, you've got this very forceful way of presenting yourself and your ideas, and it hasn't diminished over the years. And it's like, I got to tip my hat to you. I mean, obviously over all of this time, there have been high points and low points, but, if you were to speak to a younger artist, younger than my generation coming up now, obviously it's a changing field. The whole internet has changed everything, but what would you say to a younger person? Do you have anything to pass on like that?
Well, I would say certainly don't pretend you're going to be a musician or an artist. Become a computer expert, a chemist. We need better drugs.
Right.
An architect. We need that. I don't know. It's like, I don't even do social media. I have somebody do my Facebook. I have somebody do my Instagram. I need billboards. I have never seen anybody else's Facebook because I would hate them if I did. Right. I don't fucking care. Right. I mean, it's interesting when there is a younger audience, and I don't know why anybody comes to my work. Obviously, they don't feel they can relate to much other. I don't have any desire to expand my audience. It seems as if it's remained basically the same. It could just be a hologram of ghosts all recycled. I do what I do. I'm a professional juggler. I'm show folk. I don't get it. I don't understand. People are, oh, why didn't you? How could I? What am I supposed to sell out? What can I sell out? It's like, the thing is, I'm too fucking hardcore for the most mainstream. But then again, I'm not, a middle-aged woman in a fucking leotard singing songs that somebody else wrote with a fucking backbeat. Fuck off.
Right.
So I just do what I do. I have nothing to say to anybody. It's like, if you get it, if you need it, if you want it, here I am. Come and get it. I just am not. I just do what I fucking do.
Right.
I can't be bothered with, and always the live spoken word is mostly what I supported a lot of my musical career. Mm-hmm. I didn't even have a US booking agent for fucking 20 years. Mm-hmm. Mostly Europe has supported me because they understand you could do a variety of different things. Right. So there's no one big thing that saved my ass, except for NYU 5 years ago buying my archives.
Oh, really?
Which I still hold the copyright to everything. Right. I would love to sell the intellectual property rights. I don't understand why red motherfucking hot chili pepper boy frat bullshit get $150 million for crap songs. I got 400 songs. I can't sell it for $1. Just saying.
Sure.
So I own everything I ever did. I knew that from the beginning. But NYU just bought the effluvium, just bought the physical things, and they're going to have like a free digital library, which I thought was very important. I don't have time to do that shit.
Right. Sure.
So that helped me for about 5 years because I just put the money in little, pockets to be able to get myself through. Now I got to find another big scam, but it's always just, chump change. And
It's
I
always
just
a
keep
struggle.
going.
That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So
I
are you
just keep
working on
going.
anything now? What's coming up next? You got a book in the works? You got another album coming out?
Well, I got the Sylvia Black album coming. I have
Right.
an album with Grid, which is Tim and Mad, which we recorded during the pandemic. And that's where I'm reading my stuff. Henry Miller, John Recchi, and David Wargerow, it's set to their music. I have that coming up. I have a documentary which will be out, which will be playing in October in Italy, at least, called Artist Depression, Anxiety, and Rage, which I don't have depression or anxiety.
Right.
Rage,
But
I
you
take
certainly
it
have rage.
I take it to the page. I'm never mad in my real life and my personal life because my anger is fucking global. I
Right.
don't get mad at the small shit. I just don't. I
Right.
don't yell at people. I don't get mad. I don't fucking care. My issues are huge. My
Right.
issues are dictators, tyrants, the end of the world, the apocalypse, endless war, stupidity, greed, blah, blah, blah. That's so the average person cannot really piss me off. The average bullshit. I'm like, oh, really? If you have not acknowledged the fact that a lot of the world is just freaking stupid and they're going to do dumb shit and you're going to get pissed off, you're going to have road rage because people are as you should know they are, don't get it.
Right.
I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Okay. Fantastic. The one and only Lydia Lunch, ladies and gentlemen, give her a big hand of applause. Hey.
I'm applauding ourselves. We're still here. Hello. You know what I love is don't applaud. I can't stand the audience interrupting me. I'll see you soon, I hope.
To find out more about the life and work of Lydia Lunch, please visit her official website and check out the description below this video. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to CatSynth TV.